When I was far away, my dad secretly sold my apartment and my BMW to fund my brother's luxury party. That sentence still sounds unreal when I say it out loud. Like someone else's life. Someone weaker, maybe. Someone who never learned to lock doors, or trust. My name is Zachary Hale, and I used to believe family meant safety. I'm 32, born and raised in Ohio, the kind of place where people wave at strangers and pretend everything's fine even when it's cracking underneath. I was standing outside a small airport cafe when the call came in. Cold paper cup in my hand. Rain tapping against the windows. A number I didn't recognize, the realtor handling my apartment. Zachary, your father finalized the sale last week. I thought it was a mistake. My apartment wasn't just property. It was the first thing I ever owned without help. Late nights. Extra shifts. Every scratch on the floor had a memory. Then came the second hit. And the vehicle transfer papers went through too. My BMW. Gone. While my younger brother threw some once-in-a-lifetime celebration, champagne, rooftop lights, photos I later saw online, my father had signed away pieces of my life like they were spare change. I told myself there had to be an explanation. A misunderstanding. So I flew back home, rehearsing calm words in my head, giving him a chance to fix it. But the moment I walked through that front door, the smell of whiskey and leftover cake hanging in the air, my father looked at me like I was the problem. And when he opened his mouth, everything shifted. My dad didn't even stand up when I walked in. He stayed sunk into his recliner, TV light flashing across his face like nothing was wrong. Empty glasses on the coffee table. Wrapping paper still scattered from the party. "Good you're here," he said casual like I'd just come back from the grocery store. "Your brother had a great night." I stared at him, waiting for the apology that never came. "You sold my apartment," I said. My voice sounded calm, too calm. "And my car." He muted the TV with a click that felt louder than it should have. "You're doing fine, Zach. You can recover. Your brother needed support." Needed support. I laughed once dry. "Support? You sold my life." He leaned forward then, eyes heavy with something between annoyance and pride. "Family helps family. You were away anyway." It made sense. The words hit harder than shouting. Like he truly believed he'd done nothing wrong. I tried to keep it together. I told him I wasn't here to fight, just to fix this. Cancel the sale. Talk to the buyer. Anything. That's when his jaw tightened. "You're acting selfish," he snapped. "Everything you have is because of this family." Something inside me cracked at that sentence. Years of quiet sacrifices. Covering bills. Fixing problems nobody noticed. All reduced to selfishness. I felt heat climb up my neck, but I swallowed it. "I'm giving you a chance," I said quietly. "Just make this right." He stood suddenly, voice rising for the first time. "Get over it, Zachary. It's done." The house felt smaller. The air heavier. And in the hallway mirror, I caught my reflection. A man realizing he didn't belong in his own home anymore. That's when I decided to leave, but the front door opened first. My brother walked in laughing, keys spinning around his finger, expensive cologne hitting the air before he even saw me. Ethan always entered rooms like the spotlight followed him. Loud, confident, untouched by consequences. He stopped when he noticed my face. "Oh, Zach's back." No guilt. No hesitation. Just surprised that I'd shown up at all. Behind him, I could hear music leaking from someone's car outside, bass vibrating through the walls. The leftovers of a celebration I hadn't been invited to, funded by pieces of my own life. "You knew," I said. Ethan shrugged, dropping onto the couch like this was small talk. "Dad said you wouldn't mind. You're the responsible one." I stared at him, trying to find the little brother I used to drive to school, the kid who borrowed my hoodies and called me when he crashed his first car. Somewhere along the way, admiration had turned into entitlement. My father crossed his arms. Enough drama. Drama. That word stung more than the loss itself. I told them both I wasn't asking for charity. I just wanted respect. A conversation. Something human. Ethan scoffed. "You're overreacting, man. It's just stuff." Just stuff. I wanted to shout that it wasn't stuff. It was years of overtime shifts, missed trips, quiet sacrifices so our family could stay afloat while Ethan chased excitement. Instead, I grabbed my bag from the hallway. My dad's voice rose behind me. "Walk away then. See how far that attitude gets you." I paused at the door, hand on the knob, feeling every word like weight on my back. For a second I almost turned around. Almost begged them to understand. But then Ethan laughed softly, not cruel, just dismissive, and that hurt worst of all. I stepped outside into the cold night air, and realized I had nowhere to go. The night air felt sharper than I remembered, like the city itself had turned unfamiliar while I was gone. I stood on the sidewalk, my duffel bag hanging from one shoulder, watching the warm lights inside the house flicker behind drawn curtains. My childhood home looked normal, peaceful even, and that somehow made it worse. I started walking without a plan. The crunch of leaves under my shoes, distant laughter from neighbors, the faint smell of barbecue drifting through the street, ordinary things that suddenly felt like reminders that life keeps going even when yours stalls. My phone buzzed. A bank alert. I opened it expecting routine numbers, maybe travel charges from earlier. Instead, my stomach dropped. The account I used for savings, the one tied to my apartment, was nearly empty. Transfers. Multiple ones. Authorized days ago. My dad's name attached as co-signer from an old arrangement we never updated. I stopped under a street lamp, rereading the screen like the numbers might rearrange themselves if I stared long enough. Between the apartment, the car, and now this, it wasn't just careless decisions. It was deliberate. I called him once. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Rejected. My chest tightened. Not anger anymore, something heavier. The slow realization that I'd been trusting a version of family that no longer existed. A bus rolled by, brakes hissing, doors opening with a tired sigh. I climbed on without thinking, sitting near the back as city lights blurred past the window. Across the aisle, an older man watched me quietly. After a minute he said, "You look like someone who just lost something important." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "Yeah," I said softly. "I think I just lost everything." He nodded like he understood more than he let on. Then he said something that made me sit up straight. The old man leaned back, hands folded over a worn leather briefcase. He didn't look at me when he spoke, just stared out the window at passing streetlights. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "losing everything is the only way you see who was holding you down." It sounded like something from a book, but the way he said it felt lived in, like truth polished by years. I gave a tired half-smile. "Easy to say." He chuckled softly. "Not easy to survive." For some reason I told him everything. The apartment. The car. My father's anger. My brother's laughter. Words spilled out like pressure escaping a cracked pipe. He listened without interrupting, just nodding at certain moments. When I finished, he tapped his briefcase thoughtfully. "You got somewhere to stay tonight?" I shook my head. He scribbled something on a folded receipt and handed it to me. An address. A small downtown motel, nothing fancy but safe. "They won't ask many questions," he said. "Tell them Arthur sent you." Before I could thank him, the bus slowed at a stop. He stood, adjusted his coat, and gave me one last look. "One more thing, Zachary," he said, somehow knowing my name without me remembering saying it. "Don't fight people who already made their choice. Build something they can't touch." Then he stepped off into the night. I watched him disappear as the bus pulled away, feeling strangely lighter. Not healed, just clearer. At the motel, the neon sign buzzed faintly overhead as I checked in. The room smelled like old carpet and cheap soap, but it was mine for the night. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. 3 unread messages from my father. Not apologies. Demands. And the last one made my blood go cold. The message was short. "You need to sign a few remaining documents. Don't make this harder." No, "How are you?" No apology. Just instructions, like I was still an extension of their plans. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering, resisting the urge to throw the phone against the wall. The motel room hummed quietly, the old air conditioner rattling, distant traffic leaking through thin curtains, the faint smell of rain drifting in from outside. There were 2 more messages from Ethan. "Bro, don't be dramatic. Dad said you'll cool off. Also, don't mess up the paperwork. It affects taxes." I laughed, a sharp, tired sound that didn't feel like mine. They didn't understand. Maybe they never had. I opened my email and started going through every document I could find, old contracts, shared accounts, anything tied to my father's name. The realization hit slowly. Years ago when I first moved out, he'd convinced me to keep him listed, just in case. Back then it felt responsible. Now it felt like a trap I'd willingly stepped into. I called my bank first thing in the morning. Then a lawyer whose number I found after 3 different searches and 2 long pauses where I almost backed out. The woman on the phone listened carefully. "You may have options," she said. "But you'll need proof and patience." Proof I had. Patience, maybe not. By evening, the motel room felt less like an escape and more like a temporary headquarters. I made a list on a cheap notepad. Accounts to freeze, legal steps, boundaries. For the first time since walking out, I felt control creeping back. Then my phone rang. Dad. I let it ring once, twice, and finally answered. His voice wasn't angry this time. It was scared. Zachary, listen to me. My father's voice sounded smaller, thinner, like the confidence had drained out overnight. I didn't speak right away. I just listened to the faint background noise behind him. Dishes clinking, a TV too loud, the normal sounds of a house trying to pretend nothing was wrong. The buyer is asking questions, he said. And the bank flagged some transfers. You talked to someone, didn't you? There it was. Not concern for me, fear for himself. I kept my tone steady. I'm protecting what's mine. A long silence followed. You're blowing this out of proportion, he said finally, but the edge was gone. We can fix this as a family. Family. The same word that had felt like a weapon just days ago. I looked around the motel room. Cheap lamp, folded jacket on the chair, rain tapping softly against the window. Strange how peace can exist in small places. I gave you a chance, I said. I came home ready to talk. You yelled at me. He exhaled sharply. I made mistakes. The words landed awkwardly, like he wasn't used to saying them. Before I could reply, another voice echoed in the background. Ethan, angry, whispering something I couldn't make out. My father muffled the phone, arguing quietly. That told me everything. This wasn't about repairing what they broke. It was about saving what they still wanted. I'm not signing anything else, I said. Everything goes through my lawyer. Silence again. Heavy this time. When he spoke next, his voice was almost soft. You'd really turn your back on us? I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of that question. No, I said quietly. You turned first. I ended the call and set the phone down, hands shaking, not from fear but from something closer to relief. Outside the rain stopped, and for the first time in years the future felt quiet, like a blank page waiting for me to write it. The next few weeks moved slowly, but every step felt deliberate. Paperwork, calls, meetings that smelled like coffee and printer ink. My lawyer walked me through everything with steady patience, untangling years of shared access I should have changed long ago. The apartment sale couldn't be reversed, but the money trail told its own story. Transfers that shouldn't have happened. Signatures used where permission was never given. The bank recovered part of the funds. Enough to start again. I rented a small place downtown. Nothing flashy, just sunlight through clean windows and a quiet kitchen where nobody raised their voice. The first night there, I sat on the floor eating takeout, realizing how peaceful silence could be when it wasn't filled with tension. Dad called a few more times. The messages became softer, then uncertain. Ethan sent one apology that felt rushed, like someone told him he should. I didn't respond right away. One afternoon, while assembling a cheap bookshelf, I found an old photo in my bag. Me and Dad beside my first car, both laughing, younger versions of people who still believed in each other. I stared at it for a long time. Forgiveness, I learned, isn't forgetting. It's choosing not to carry the weight forever. So I wrote one message. I hope you figure things out. I'm building my own life now. No anger. No speeches. Just truth. Weeks later, I bought another car. Not a BMW, just something reliable. As I drove through the city, windows down, cool air rushing in, I realized the real loss wasn't the apartment or the money. It was the illusion that love means ownership. And the quiet, earned victory? For the first time, everything ahead belonged to me.